Behind me is this Ford F-150 with a 5.4 liter V8, and it has had a head gasket failure. In this video, I want to go over some potential signs of a bad head gasket, as well as some tips and tricks that will help you when you have to replace your head gaskets. I'm Christian from 1A Auto. Let's get started. Before we get started with the video, if you need any parts for your car or truck, or maybe some head gaskets, go on over to 1AAuto.com. Our parts ship fast and free. So what even is a head gasket? In front of me are two heads, which are the upper half of your engine, and they mount onto the engine block, which is this right here. As you can see, it has two sides to it because it's a V8. The head gasket goes right on here on both sides, and the heads get bolted on right on top. So back to the head here, this is the surface that mounts to the block. This is the bottom side of the head, and the head gasket will sandwich right in between the two halves, like I mentioned, and will seal everything up. It has the same layout of coolant and oil ports as the block, so the fluids can circulate from one half to the other seamlessly, but the head gasket needs to make sure that those two fluids, the coolant and the oil, stay separated. If it does mix, you get the forbidden milkshake, and here's a little sneak peek of what that looks like. And speaking of head gaskets, this is one of the two main types of head gaskets, called a multi-layer steel, or MLS short, and that means it has 3 layers of steel that sandwich together between the head and the block and create that perfect seal that you want. The other type is a single layer steel, which means it just has 1 layer. They both have their advantages and disadvantages, it just depends on the application. So before we talk about the fixes, let's talk about the potential signs of a bad head gasket. So in no particular order, the first sign is going to be a milkshake looking color in your oil pan when you drain your oil for an oil change maybe, or inside your overflow for your coolant. If you see that chocolate milkshake looking color, most likely the head gasket has blown and it is mixing coolant with oil, and that is not good. Another sign that you might notice is low coolant. So if it's not leaking anywhere, it could be going into the oil and mixing up with that, or entering your combustion chamber and getting burnt up. Low coolant leads to overheating your engine, which is another sign of a bad head gasket. Another sign would be white smoke coming from your tailpipe, and that usually is caused by coolant entering the combustion chamber and getting burnt up. The last sign I want to talk about is a misfire, which can be caused by low compression. That low compression can come from the head gasket blowing right here in between the two cylinders. So how can a head gasket even fail? You have 2 different categories here. It can fail externally, or it can fail internally, or both, which is actually the case for us here. Let me show you. For an external leak, you'll notice it on the outside of the engine. So in this picture here, you can see that there is oil right in between the head and the engine block. That's because the gasket is seeping oil out externally. In this one here, you can see that it's actually seeping coolant out between the block and the head. Both of these are signs of a bad head gasket externally. We're not talking internal yet. So if oil seeps out from the side of the block between the head and the block, typically it's underneath the exhaust manifold because that's where the gasket is, or same with coolant. It could be both. It could be both at the same time. Then you have a bad head gasket and it's leaking fluids externally. And now let's talk about the internal leak possibility, which can be multiple different things, either individual or combined. You can have coolant leaking inside of the combustion chamber. You can have coolant leaking inside, I guess it would be down here because these are the oil drain ports. You could have coolant leaking inside the oil. Both of the things I just mentioned were the case for this engine. Or you could have compression issues where the compression escapes into the adjacent cylinder because the head gasket can't hold it anymore. So in this particular case, our failure point was most likely over here in this cylinder. If this is how the head gasket sat when it was installed, if I take it and flip it over, so on the head side of the head gasket, not on the block side, which is underneath now, you can see right here this coating has peeled off mostly, and the only part that's still there is this thin layer between this coolant passage and the combustion chamber, which is this. And I'll show you what the spark plug of the cylinder looked like in a minute, but you can tell coolant can easily make its way in here as the piston goes down, creates a vacuum, and it's very likely to basically pull coolant in from the coolant port. Now, this is less likely to happen with oil because the oil ports are all the way over here. There's basically no way that oil can make its way this far into the combustion chamber from the head gasket. So you can see right here, this was one of our failure points, and I say one of them because we also actually had oil and coolant mixing together, When I pulled this oil pan off, this is what the bottom of it looked like. You had the forbidden milkshake is what it's called sometimes, but that basically is oil and coolant mixed together. If you ever drain your oil and it looks like that, not good. Not a good sign. That means your head gasket is probably blown. You can see this also on the spark plug. It has a lot of deposits on it. What I'm thinking is the spark plug, when it was in the cylinder, it was facing this way and the coolant was spraying in at it from over here, and that's what made the deposits build up on the tip of the spark plug here. So now let's get this engine fixed, and I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks along the way. So let's start at the top. I'm going to remove the air intake first, unplug any wires that are attached to it. Now remove the engine cover or the throttle body cover that's sitting up top so you can pull the rest of the intake off. Next, I want to remove the upper radiator hose off the radiator so I can get the fan and the fan shroud out of the way. Those come out as one piece. Next, I'm going to finish removing stuff from the top. So take out some brackets, wires, and hoses. And now I'm going to work on removing the alternator so I can make a little bit more room to remove the air intake. Now take the throttle body off. You can see me unbolting the EGR off the throttle body so I can remove it. And now onto the exhaust. I'm removing the passenger side exhaust manifold here. It's the same procedure for the driver's side, except on the driver's side you have an EGR tube which bolts onto it. I actually cut mine off and I'm going to install a new EGR and a new manifold on that side. A little tip for exhaust hardware: if you have a torch, go ahead and heat them up. Don't go crazy, but it could help you get those off easier. Now let's remove the air intake. You want to unplug all of the fuel injectors as well as all of the ignition coils. And then once that's done, you want to unbolt the ignition coils and pull them all right out of the way. Remove all the bolts that surround it, disconnect the fuel lines, and pull the intake right off. Next, I want to work on the valve covers, getting those taken off. And with all the 8mm bolts removed from around them, it's pretty easy. You just pop them right off. I want to remove the timing cover now, and to do that, I have to remove all these pulleys that are in front. So take off everything that's in your way, including this power steering pump pulley, for which you will need a special puller for, and same for the harmonic balancer, which is your crank pulley. Once those are off, unbolt all the bolts that hold this timing cover on. It does have two little dowel pins that it might get stuck on, so just work it back and forth and off it comes. Now, as we set the timing and have to turn the engine over, if you take the spark plugs out, it'll make it a lot easier to turn the engine. Otherwise, you'll be fighting compression on every single cylinder and your arm will get tired before you even go one full rotation. Hold on this engine and a few other ones, but this one specifically, spark plugs tend to go shooting. So when you pull those out, look at the threads, look at the spark plugs, and feel for how tight they were. I actually had two of them that were not tight. They were not even bottomed out. Well, they were close, but they were not tight. I could have taken them out by hand. So keep that in mind. Now we have to time the engine, set it to top dead center so we can pull the timing chains off. To do that, it's actually pretty simple on this particular application, which is the 2-valve non-variable valve timing 5.4 V8. So you have to set the passenger side cam sprocket to 11 o'clock with the mark, the driver's side to 12 o'clock, and the crank at 12 o'clock as well. Once all those are set, you can take the tensioners off, pull the timing chains off. As you're taking these chains off, you can use a 3/8 Allen head bit and stick it into the end of the cam on the sprocket there. If you don't have the correct cam holding tool, that will allow you to hold the cams in place so they don't roll backwards very fast as you're taking the chain off. If it happens, just inspect it. It's probably going to be okay, but this is an interference engine, so the pistons can hit the valves if something bad happens. And obviously, once the chains are off, do not rotate anything. Just leave it as is until you take the heads off. And now let's get to the heads. To correctly remove these heads, there is a sequence that you have to follow when you take the bolts off. Start from the outside and work your way towards the middle. And you want to use a breaker bar, at least that's what I suggest. Turn the bolts backwards, half a turn each in that sequence. Don't loosen them all the way, just do half a turn. Then go back through the same sequence and loosen them completely without removing them. Then you can remove them all the way. This process lowers the risk of the head warping because the head is bolted down so tight, and being aluminum, it's a softer metal, so if you take it out in the wrong sequence, you can potentially warp the head just by removing it the wrong way. And when you pull the head off, just make sure you set it down on a soft surface like some pads, a towel, a rag, whatever you have. Just make sure you don't put it down on the concrete floor or on a surface that can damage the mounting surface of the head. A little tip for the head bolt on the passenger side: the second to last lower bolt will hit the AC accumulator if you're doing this job with the engine in the car. You don't have to evacuate the AC refrigerant and move the accumulator out of the way or pull the engine out. What you can do is take a piece of hose, cut it down to a couple inches and put it around the bolt, or use a wire tie and make sure that the bolt doesn't drop back down into the block, and then pull the head right off. Speaking of head bolts, don't reuse the old ones. They are torque to yield bolts, which means they stretch and twist when you torque them, so they cannot be reused. You have to buy new ones. Now with the heads off of here, you want to inspect the surface where the heads bolt onto the block. Make sure it's not scratched up, rusted. Look inside the cylinders. Make sure you don't have rust on the cylinder walls or any scratch marks or scoring. These ones actually look very good. They have the factory cross hatching on them, and this truck has 192,000 miles on it. So I'd say that's pretty good. And now moving on to the heads, you want to check those for any damage, any grooves or scoring or nicks or anything like that. Check the valves to make sure that they are as good as you can tell that they are. And as always, I suggest and strongly recommend sending these heads out to a machine shop. So what I had them do at the machine shop, which I strongly recommend, but you definitely don't have to, it's just what I recommend, is I had them resurface the surface here that bolts onto the block, obviously on both sides. They cleaned everything so it's nice and free of any debris. They pressure tested it to make sure that it had no cracks in any of the coolant passages, all these that you can see here. Sometimes there are internal cracks that you can't see and you won't know till you bolt it back up and start the engine. And I had them replace the valve seals. So all of these valves have some rubber seals down in there, which you have to disassemble the head for, take the cams out, take the springs out and everything, and then replace the seals. The machine shop can do that for you, and I highly recommend it. And doing that will help prevent oil from entering your cylinders and having other issues down the line. Now that the heads are off, you want to prepare the block surface for reinstallation. You want to clean it and degrease it. You want all contaminants off of that surface. And then I suggest using a razor blade to scrape off any other debris that is stuck and embedded onto that surface. It's never going to look perfectly clean because it's stained from years and years of heat cycles and the gasket being squished on there. Here you can see I'm using some brake parts cleaner to get it as clean as I can and to degrease the whole surface. One extra step that you could do only if you have the proper tools and materials, otherwise it could go wrong very fast. You want to take a sanding block, a good quality one that's perfectly flat with some fine grit sandpaper, and just sand the whole surface of the block down in order to smooth out the surface a little bit. Use brake parts cleaner to keep the sandpaper from clogging up. Again, you don't have to do this if you don't have a good sanding block because you could completely ruin the surface. This block is made of cast iron, so it's a lot stronger than aluminum, but it could still get damaged. A little tip for you, if your heads are out at the machine shop for a while, or if you don't plan on putting them back for more than a couple hours, I strongly recommend oiling the surface of the block very lightly because that will prevent flash rust from creating little rust spots on that surface. And if that happens, well, you have to clean it off and then you're digging into that material more. You just don't want that to happen. So once everything is cleaned up, just put a light layer of engine oil on there, which you will then have to remove with some brake parts cleaner before installation, but it will keep that surface protected. So let's get this back together. Now when you're putting the heads back on, make sure the surface is nice and clean, dry, and free of any debris when you put the gasket and the head onto the block. Make sure you use brand new head bolts. Like I said, do not reuse your old ones. Before you drop those new head bolts down, go ahead and oil the threads a little bit because you want to remove all the friction on the threads so that when you torque it down, you get an accurate number. Also, put a little bit of oil on the top washer of the head of the bolt. That way you remove friction from there too. You take that out of the equation and you get an accurate torque spec. It's very important for this that you follow the right torque sequence and torque spec. You don't want to wing this. You don't want to just make up a torque spec. Start from the center and work your way out. And you make 3 passes to fully torque this head down. One at 30 foot-pounds, a second one 90 degrees, and a third one 90 degrees as well, and then you're done. My only tip is after you do your first pass at 30 foot-pounds, go ahead and do it a second time because most likely what you're going to find is the middle bolts that you started with are now loose, and if you go 90 degrees with those bolts loose, your final torque is going to be off. So make sure they're all at 30 foot-pounds, double check it, even triple check it if that's what it takes to get a proper baseline torque for your degrees. And since you're in this far into the engine, I strongly recommend new timing components. That's a chain, guides, and tensioners. Unless you've recently replaced those, then you can reuse them. But if not, I strongly suggest new components, which you can find at oneauto.com. And now, let's just put all the other components back together. Put on the timing cover, put on the valve covers, put on the intake, put on all the pulleys, the belt, the fan shroud, and you need to do an oil change after this. It's very important because the oil pan on this one actually sticks out past the front of the block, so debris is definitely going to fall in there when you have the timing cover off. So I know this was a lot of information, but like I said, these engines are notorious for having bad head gasket, and head gasket issues, which ours had, like you saw. So hopefully now you know what to do and how to detect those issues, because that's important. You want to catch it before a bigger problem arises or before you're stuck on the side of the road. So I hope all this information was helpful for you and you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to drop a like, hit the subscribe button, and ring the bell so that you can stay up to date with all of our latest content. In this video, I want to go over some potential... What's the word? Yeah, what is the word? Another sign, and that is usually caused by low compression. Next, I'm going to to bottom. I'm going to to bottom. Next, I'm going to mark my. Why isn't it coming out?